I used to think distance was something you could measure, miles on a map, time zones between calls, not the space between two people sitting at the same table, but that is where it started, at our dining table. The one we bought together the first year after our wedding, back when we joked that someday our kids would do their homework there. Lately, it had become a stage for silence, forks scraping porcelain, the soft ticking of the wall clock. Her eyes fixed on her phone, face lit by a glow that didn't come from me. "Long day?" I asked. It had become my default line, as if work could still explain away everything. She nodded without really looking at me. "Yeah, I'm exhausted. There's a product launch coming. My boss is on my back." I watched her thumb move, a quick secretive swipe, screen down, almost subconscious. "I thought we were going to watch that new show tonight," I said. I tried to make it light, teasing. She forced a small smile. "Maybe tomorrow. I've still got some emails to finish after dinner." Emails, always emails. The rain tapped softly against the living room window. Outside, the city hummed with traffic and neon. Inside, our apartment felt like a waiting room, two people killing time until something finally happened. She took her plate to the sink before she was even done, rinsed it quickly. Wiped the counter that was already clean, busyness as camouflage. I stayed at the table, staring at the small wilted plant between us. She used to fuss over that plant, turn it toward the light each morning. Now it leaned sideways, half forgotten, like everything else. We had been married 7 years, long enough to collect routines, short enough that people still called us newlyweds with a nostalgic smile. But recently, everything about her felt elsewhere. Her perfume lingering in the hallway when she left earlier than usual, showers late at night, her laptop always closing when I walked past. You tell yourself not to be paranoid. You repeat all the things you've heard. Trust matters. Everyone gets distracted sometimes. Work is demanding, but something in the way she hugged me changed. She still wrapped her arms around me, yet there was a stiffness. A polite distance where her chest used to press into mine. One Thursday evening, she came home later than normal. Rain had drenched her hair in fine droplets. She was flushed, cheeks bright, eyes sharper than they had been in weeks. "Hey," I said, stepping out from the kitchen. I was starting to get worried. She laughed a little too quickly. "Sorry, we had an after-work thing, drinks, I told you yesterday." She hadn't, I was sure she hadn't. But it was the kind of thing I couldn't prove without sounding controlling. I looked at her clothes, her blouse slightly rumpled, lipstick just a bit smudged at the edge, her phone already in her hand. "Did you have fun?" "Yeah, it was fine." She slipped past me, kissed my cheek instead of my mouth. The kiss landed sideways, a half-contact gesture. In the bathroom, I heard the shower turn on almost immediately, water roaring, door locked. I stood in the hallway listening, not to the water but to my own heart beating too fast for a normal Thursday. I tried to distract myself, turned on the TV, scrolled through news I didn't read. But the unease was buzzing just under my skin. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, steam following her like a veil, I noticed something. Her phone was not with her. She always kept it close, on the counter during showers, on the nightstand. In her hand, even while brushing her teeth. "Hey, where's your phone?" I asked casually. "In my bag," she said without looking up, toweling her hair. "Why?" "Just thought I heard it ring." "It's on silent." Her answer snapped out faster than the question required. That night she fell asleep facing the edge of the bed, her back to me. Her breathing was too even, too performed. I lay awake, watching the faint glow of the streetlights slide across the ceiling, listening to the rain fade into a low hush. I told myself I wouldn't look, that I wasn't that husband, the one who snoops, who checks, who breaks trust out of fear. But fear had already broken something. It had cracked open the simple certainty that we were fine. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, she said she needed to head into the office for a bit. "On a Sunday?" I asked. "Yeah, the launch is next week. The team's behind. I won't be late." She moved quickly, grabbing her bag, slipping into the navy coat she saved for important meetings. Her movements were efficient, rehearsed. "Want me to drive you?" I offered. "No, it's fine. Parking's a nightmare near the building anyway." Her refusal came too quickly. I felt it land between us like a stone. After the door closed, the apartment felt larger, empty. The plant on the dining table stood like a small witness nobody had questioned yet. I picked up my own phone, fingers hesitating. The thought had been circling in my head for days. I had noticed patterns. Names popping up in message previews, times that didn't add up. There was one name I had never heard her say out loud. Liam. I had seen it once when her screen lit up in the car. Just a flash. Liam. Last night was. Then her thumb had slammed down on the power button. That flash had burned itself into my memory. I told myself it could have been anything. A colleague, an old friend, a joke, but the rest of the message had been cut off. Last night was what? I opened my laptop and logged into our phone provider's account. The login info sat in an old email. We had set it up together years ago. The call logs loaded slowly. Numbers and dates and durations filling the screen in orderly rows. I scrolled. My own number appeared regular, familiar. Then I saw it, the same unknown number, again and again. Calls at midnight, lunch breaks, Sunday mornings. My throat went dry. I copied the number into a search bar. No name, just a city area code. My hand shook as I opened our shared cloud account. Her photos synced automatically. She never questioned it, it was just a backup. The thumbnails loaded in neat little rows. Vacations, birthdays, us smiling in front of monuments that felt like they had been taken in another lifetime. Then, out of nowhere, new images. From the last month, photos I had never seen. There she was in a dim bar, soft yellow lights, a glass in her hand. Her face tilted toward someone off camera, that wide, unguarded smile I hadn't seen in weeks. Swipe. Another photo. This time he was beside her. A man in a fitted shirt, leaning in clothes. Dark hair, stubble, his arm resting along the back of her chair, fingers almost touching her shoulder. Her eyes were on him, not the camera. She was laughing, mouth open. Hand touching his wrist like it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened. I zoomed in. Her wedding ring still on. I scrolled further. A hotel room, unmistakably not ours. Neutral beige walls, a generic painting. Soft yellow bedside lamp. A selfie taken in a mirror, her hair messy, makeup smudged slightly. She was wearing a hotel robe tied loosely. Behind her, a man's shape half visible in the reflection, bare shoulder, profile turned away. The timestamp was from a night she had told me. She was at a late team workshop. For a moment the room spun. I put the laptop down and just sat there. The sound of the distant traffic faded. All I could hear was my own breathing, rough and uneven. There it was, not a suspicion, not an anxious thought, proof. The word tasted metallic in my mouth. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was a flat gray sheet, threatening rain again. People moved along the sidewalks, umbrellas in hand, carrying groceries, walking dogs. Life continued as if nothing had shattered. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass. A car horn blared somewhere below. A child laughed. The normalcy of it all felt cruel. I could have called her right then, screamed, demanded answers, asked why 100 different ways, but another instinct whispered, low and cold. Don't show your hand yet. If you confront a lie with half-truths, it just changes shape. I went back to the laptop, opened the photos again, saved copies to a private folder, screenshotted the call logs. My hands moved automatically, like I was documenting someone else's life. The rain finally started, thin lines tracing down the glass, blurring the city lights into smeared halos. In that quiet, with the sound of rain and the glow of the screen on my face, something inside me folded in on itself. This was the moment. The one people talk about in vague, hushed tones. The moment you realize the person you share a bed with is also the person who has been lying to your face. I closed the laptop softly, sat alone at the table, the plant between my hands, its soil dry, leaves drooping. My phone buzzed. A message from her, running a bit late. Don't wait up for dinner, love you. The words love you stared back at me, sharp and surreal. I looked at them for a long time. Then, very slowly, my thumb hovered over the keyboard, every possible response crowding my mind. And I decided to send none of them. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay on my back, staring at the faint cracks on the bedroom ceiling, tracing them like a map of everything that had led here. The bed felt larger than usual. Her side was cold. She had texted again around midnight. Sorry, just heading home now. Everyone's tired. Everyone, such a useful word, wide enough to hide one person. When she slipped into the bedroom, I kept my eyes half closed. Her footsteps were soft on the carpet. The zipper of her bag, the muted thud of her shoes hitting the floor. She smelled faintly of a different soap, a hotel's maybe, something sterile and citrusy. She paused on my side of the bed. I felt her gaze on my face. Her fingers brushed my hair back from my forehead, the same gesture she used when we first moved in together. Long day, she whispered, more to herself than to me. The mattress dipped as she lay down. She turned away toward the wall. In the darkness, my mind replayed those photos on a loop. Her laughter, his arm, that hotel robe. My stomach twisted. I turned onto my side, facing her back. There was a time when I would have reached out, wrapped an arm around her waist, pulled her close until her breathing synced with mine. Now my hand hovered in the space between us, suspended. I let it fall back to my chest. The next morning, the city woke to a wet, gray light. I stood at the kitchen counter, making coffee. The machine hissed softly. The smell of roasted beans filled the small space. When she walked in, her hair was still damp from the shower. She wore the navy blazer she reserved for important days. Morning, she said, forcing a smile. Her eyes flicked briefly to my face, searching. For For what, I wasn't sure. Morning. My voice sounded unfamiliar, like I was imitating myself. She poured herself coffee, added too much sugar as always, stirred it in distracted circles. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep. Yeah, me neither. This launch is killing me. Her gaze dropped to her phone on the counter. A small notification lit up the screen. She turned it over quickly. Is that him? The thought screamed in my head, but I swallowed it. Instead, I asked, you going in early again? Yeah, the team needs me there. She didn't look at me when she said it. I watched her button her blazer, each movement controlled. I remembered the first time I saw her wearing that blazer. At her promotion celebration, she had dragged me to the terrace of the restaurant, breathless with joy. We did it, she had said back then. Now there was no we in her sentences about work. Only I and they. After she left, closing the door with that soft click that used to comfort me, the apartment seemed to exhale. Silence settled in. The ticking clock on the wall sounded louder. I sat at the table with my coffee, letting it go cold. The question loomed. What was I going to do with what I knew? There is a particular kind of pain that isn't sharp. It's not the first blow. It's the one that lingers after, heavy and dull, making it hard to move. I went back to the laptop, opened the folder of evidence, looked at it like it belonged to a stranger, her smile in that bar, his profile, the hotel room. I clicked on the details, location data, time, all neatly stamped. The dates aligned perfectly with her late nights. The weekend she had gone to a conference out of town. The Friday she claimed to be crashing at a coworker's place because the roads were bad from the storm. It wasn't just one mistake, it was a pattern, and because humans are cruel to themselves, I went looking for him next. The number, the area code, the hints from broken bits of conversation I had half heard when she thought I wasn't listening. A first name spoken once on the phone, Liam, I can't talk right now. Social media is merciless. Within half an hour I had found him. Liam, marketing consultant, clean photos, gym mirrors, beach vacations. His feed was a carefully curated highlight reel. In one photo, he stood at a rooftop bar, city lights scattered behind him like fallen stars, the same bar from one of her photos, same angle. Same distant building with the blue neon. I zoomed in. His arm was extended, holding the phone, her shoulder just barely visible at the edge of the frame. My hands went numb for a moment. I rubbed my eyes, but the image stayed. I scrolled further, 6 months back, no sign of her. Then gradually subtle hints, the corner of her scarf, a reflection in glass, 2 wine glasses instead of one. I thought about messaging him, about sending him the photos I had. Writing something simple and direct, I know. But some part of me resisted making him real. If I contacted him, he stopped being a shadow and became a person, with a voice, with excuses, with his own version of the story. Right now he was just a shape around which my anger could form, a placeholder for a betrayal that actually came from someone who shared my last name. The next few days melted into each other. Mornings felt heavy, nights were worse. I went to work mechanically, answered emails, nodded in meetings. People asked if I was okay. Just tired, I said. At home, the distance between us grew louder. She laughed more on her phone than she did in any conversation with me. She stayed in the bedroom with the door half closed, just finishing something. One night I woke up alone. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Her side of the bed was empty. I found her in the living room, sitting in the dark, phone pressed to her ear, whispering. The only light came from the screen. It painted her face in cold blue. I miss you too, she said softly. A silence. Then a low laugh, the kind that used to be reserved for me. I stayed in the hallway, listening to the blood rush in my ears. She hadn't noticed me yet. I can't talk long, she whispered. No, he's asleep. I needed to hear your voice. My chest tightened. I stepped back before the floor creaked, returned to the bedroom, lay down, stared at the ceiling. The word needed kept echoing, needed his voice. What did she need from me anymore? The morning after, she moved around the kitchen a little too quickly, avoiding eye contact, over-explaining small things. I might stay at the office late this week, she said, pouring coffee. Things are chaotic. If I don't text much, it's just that. Right, I said, my voice felt detached from my body. I had started talking less, afraid of what might spill out if I let go. Sarcasm, bitterness, all the questions knotted in my throat. There's a strange, quiet resilience that appears when someone realizes they are being lied to. You begin to build a parallel version of yourself, one that acts normal on the surface. And another silent, who watches everything, collecting details like evidence for a trial that hasn't been scheduled yet. I became that second person. I noticed the way she smiled at her phone more than at me. The way she chose her clothes on days she had meetings. The perfume she only wore sometimes now, never around me. One rainy evening, a small turning point arrived disguised as something ordinary. I was leaving the office when my coworker Arjun caught up with me. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. "You've been off this week." I almost brushed it aside, but something in his voice, in the direct concern, cut through my fog. "Things are just rough at home," I said. The words felt like stepping into another room, one where the truth had air. He hesitated. "You don't have to say anything. If you ever need to crash at my place or get out for a bit, just call me." "Okay." I nodded, throat tight. The offer was simple, uncomplicated, no questions. On the train ride home, the city slid past in streaks of neon reflected on wet glass. People scrolled their feeds, laughed at something only they could see. I stared at my reflection instead. I barely recognized the man looking back. In my pocket, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. No, not unknown, just not saved. "Is this Ethan?" My heart stumbled. "Yes, Ethan, me." "Who is this?" I typed back. 3 dots appeared, paused, disappeared, reappeared. "It's better if we talk. Can you call?" I stared at the message for a long time. The train rattled on, indifferent. I stepped off at the next station, heart pounding. The platform was almost empty, lit by harsh, cold light. Rain blew in from the open side, carried by the wind. I pressed call. The phone rang twice, then a man's voice. "Ethan." "Yes." A quiet inhale. "This is Liam." For a second, all the noise in the station faded. Only his voice remained. Ordinary, human, not a shadow anymore. "I think," he said slowly, his words careful, "we need to talk about Maya." Her name in his mouth felt like another betrayal entirely. I leaned against a concrete pillar, the cold seeping into my back, the rain mist reaching my face. "Yeah," I said, my voice low, "I think we do." The train behind me roared past, sending a rush of wind through the station. For a moment, everything blurred, the lights, the sound, the edges of my vision. And as he took a breath on the other end of the line, about to tell me his version of the story, I realized silently that whatever he said next, there was no going back to the life I had before that call. When you hear the other man's voice for the first time, you expect it to sound wrong, oil and water, something you can instantly hate. Liam's voice wasn't like that. It was quiet, measured, almost hesitant. "I didn't want to call you," he said at first. "I kept telling myself it wasn't my place." We stood on opposite ends of the city, sharing a thin, fragile connection through plastic and signal. I watched raindrops slide down the station's metal railing. Each one traced its own path, then disappeared. "So why did you?" I asked. "Because she lied to me too." The words came out flat, without dramatics. "About you." "About everything." For a moment I didn't speak. The idea that she was capable of layering lies on top of each other, to both of us, made my jaw clench. "She told me you were separated," he continued. "That you were just sharing the apartment until the lease ended." I let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. "And you believed that?" "People believe what they want to believe," he said quietly. "I did. I should have known." "That's on me." Part of me wanted to hang up on him, to tell him none of this somehow made him better, but another part was curious. Not about details, but about perspective. What version of her had he known? How long? I asked. "About 8 months," he said. The number landed heavily between us. 8 months. Almost a year of a parallel life I didn't know about. He added, "We met at a work event. She said you were done, that she'd stayed too long out of guilt." He broke off. "I'm not calling to justify anything. There's no good version of this." The station announcement echoed overhead, muffled by the rain. I shifted the phone to my other ear. "Why now?" I asked. "Why call me now?" A pause. "I saw a picture," he said, "on her Instagram, you and her, at your anniversary dinner, last month. We had gone to a small Italian restaurant. She had insisted, even though I had suggested, we keep it simple that year. We had posed for a photo at the table, candles between us, her head leaning on my shoulder. That's when I realized," he said, "she wasn't separated. She was still married, properly, to you." My stomach tightened. "So until then, what did you think I was?" "An ex, a technicality, a man who had already moved on. She said you were dating someone too. It always amazes you, the detail in a lie when someone needs it to hold." I looked at the slick tracks below, reflecting red and green lights. "So what now?" "I ended it with her," he said, "last week." The words felt strange coming from his mouth. Ended it with her. Like it was their relationship ending, not the life I had been living. "She didn't take it well," he added. "She begged, cried, said she'd leave you for real this time. I told her no. That I was done being part of this." A busker somewhere on the far end of the station strummed a guitar, the sound weak over the rain. He continued, I thought you should know from someone who doesn't owe you anything." Anger flared. "Is that supposed to make me grateful?" "No," he said simply. "It's just the truth." Truth, such a simple word, such a scarce commodity in the three of us. We hung up not long after. No closure, no apologies that could count. Just a heavy silence after the call ended, leaving me alone with the echo of his voice. On the ride home, I replayed the conversation in my head, not the parts about dates and lies, but the way he had sounded when he said her name. Soft, like someone who had loved her too. The apartment was dark when I got back. I didn't turn on the main lights, just the small lamp by the couch, casting a mellow pool of yellow. I sat there for a long time, coat still on, keys in my hand, waiting, not sure if for her or for some version of myself that could handle what was coming. Eventually, the lock turned. Her footsteps approached slowly, like even the hallway knew something had shifted. "Hey," she said as she stepped in, closing her umbrella. She looked tired, not dramatically, just worn around the edges. Her eyes landed on me. On the fact that I was just sitting there in semi-darkness, something in her face tightened. "You're home early," she said. "So are you," I replied. It was only a little after 8. Earlier than most of her late nights. She put her bag down carefully, too carefully, like she was buying time. "Is everything okay?" she asked. There was real concern in her tone, or maybe she just practiced it enough it sounded that way. I motioned toward the chair opposite me. "Can you sit?" That was when her posture changed. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes became alert. She knew, maybe not what I knew, but she felt the ground shift. She sat, hands clasped in her lap. The lamp between us cast soft light on her face, making the hollows under her eyes deeper. The silence stretched. I let it. I watched her fidget, glance at her phone on the table, then away. Finally, she said, "You're scaring me, Ethan." "Good," I said quietly. "Maybe a little fear is overdue here." She swallowed. "Just tell me what's going on." I took out my phone, opened the folder, laid it on the table, screen facing her. The first photo, her and Liam at the bar. I didn't say anything, didn't explain, didn't accuse. Her gaze dropped. She stared. The color drained from her face. The word died in her throat. I swiped. The hotel mirror selfie appeared. She flinched like I had hit her, hands flying to her mouth, eyes filling with tears almost instantly, like the ducks had been waiting. The room went utterly silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. "How long?" I asked. My voice felt worn but steady. She shook her head. It wasn't." "How long?" Each word landed like a dropped stone. Her shoulders sagged, like a string holding her up had snapped. 8 months, she whispered. I exhaled slowly. The number still hurt, even though I already knew. She rushed in, words tumbling. "It was never supposed to be anything. I was lonely, and you were always working and tired, and I felt invisible, and when he—" "Don't," I said quietly. "Do not make this about me not being exciting enough." Tears spilled over. She wiped them away with the back of her hand like she was angry at them. "I'm not," she said. "It's not your fault. I know that. I know I did this. I don't know how I became this person." I looked at her, at the woman I had married in a small courthouse on a bright June afternoon, promising nothing dramatic, just constancy. At the woman who now sat in front of me, divided between guilt and habit. "Did you love him?" I asked. She flinched. Her fingers tightened around each other. "I thought I did," she said eventually. It felt like escape. Like being 25 again, before responsibilities, before everything. And now, she met my eyes for the first time since the photos. Now it feels like I set our life on fire for a spark that was never meant to last. The image of that hotel lamp flashed in my mind. Soft light on beige walls, the robe, her smile. "I talked to him," I said. Her eyes widened, panic flaring. "What, when?" "Today." I watched the way her throat moved as she swallowed. "He called me." Her gaze darted to the side, somewhere over my shoulder. "Why would he do that?" "He said you lied to him too." She closed her eyes briefly, as if the weight of her own stories was finally settling. "I told him we were separated," she admitted. "I told him we were done, that we were just living together because of the lease. I couldn't stand the look in people's eyes when they saw me and realized what I'd done. So I told myself it was almost true, that we were already over." I let that sit there, her rewrite of our history, how convenient almost true can be. "Were we?" I asked softly. "Over." Her face crumpled then in a way I hadn't seen before, not the composed crying of someone who feels guilty, but the raw collapse of someone who has finally run out of lies, even to themselves. "No," she whispered. Her voice broke. "We were tired, distant, but not over. I didn't know how to ask you to see me again. So when he did, I grabbed onto it like a lifeline. And I kept holding on, even when it started to drown me." The metaphor hung there, Rain traced slow paths down the dark window behind her. I realized then that there were two griefs in the room, mine for the life I thought I had. Hers for the person she thought she still was. "I'm so sorry," she said. The words sounded small, fragile, inadequate against the scale of the wreckage. "Are you sorry you did it?" I asked, "or sorry you got caught?" She flinched again, but she didn't look away this time. "Both," she said, "mostly that I broke you, that I broke this." Her hand gestured weakly around the room. The couch where we ate pizza on movie nights, the shelves we built together on a Sunday afternoon. The table between us now a border. "I ended it with him," she said. "Last week, he walked away. I begged, and he still left. And it was like waking up hungover from something that was never worth the pain. I wanted to come clean to you. I just couldn't face this." She wiped her face again, more roughly this time. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't think I deserve that. But I need you to know I never stopped loving you. Even when I was doing the worst possible thing to you." Love, the word soured in my mouth. "Don't call that love," I said quietly. "Not right now." Silence pressed in, the lamp hummed faintly. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor laughed at something on their TV. "What do you want me to do?" she asked eventually. Her voice was small, stripped of every defense. "Do you want me to leave? I will. Tonight, I'll pack a bag. I won't fight you on anything. Just say it, and I'll go." The idea of her leaving immediately, of the front door closing behind her forever, hit me like cold water. Part of me wanted that clean break, tear the bandage. No process, just absence. Another part knew that endings are rarely clean, that even if she walked out tonight, the ghost of her would remain in every corner of this apartment for a long time. "I don't know what I want," I said honestly. It was the truest sentence I had spoken in weeks. She nodded, eyes glistening. "That's fair." We sat there, two people tethered by history and hurt, nothing resolved, nothing decided. Eventually she stood. "I'll sleep in the spare room," she said. Her voice trembled. "You can have the bedroom. I'll stay out of your way until you figure out what you want to do." She picked up her bag slowly, like moving through water, paused in the doorway. "I know saying this doesn't fix anything," she whispered, not turning around, "but I would give anything to go back 8 months and walk out of that bar instead." She waited maybe for a response, an accusation, a cruel line. Something to puncture the moment. I said nothing. I just watched her silhouette in the dim hallway light. After a long, aching pause, she walked away. The soft sound of her footsteps faded down the corridor toward the small, unused room we had once talked about turning into a nursery. The door clicked shut behind her. The apartment fell into a deep, almost sacred quiet. Not peace. Not yet. Just the hollow stillness after a storm has finished tearing through, but before anyone has begun to pick up the pieces. I sat there long into the night, the lamp casting tired light over the half-empty room, knowing that the next morning would come whether I was ready or not. And that when it did, both of us would still be here, orbiting the same space, caught between a past we couldn't return to and a future neither of us knew how to face. Morning arrived softly, no dramatic sunrise, just a pale gray light slipping in around the edges of the curtains. For the first time in years, I woke up alone in our bed. Her pillow was still there, dented, faintly carrying her scent. But the space beside me was empty in a new, heavier way. The city outside was quieter than usual. Rain had washed the streets during the night. Cars moved slowly through puddles. Distant traffic sounded muffled, as if the world had put cotton in its ears. I lay there for a while, listening to the apartment breathe, the refrigerator hum, the faint creak of pipes. Somewhere down the hall, a soft, occasional rustle from the spare room. She was there, not gone, not yet. The reality of that fact pressed against the part of me that wanted abrupt endings, but life rarely obeys our need for clean lines. I got out of bed, the floor was cool under my feet. In the mirror, I barely recognized the man looking back, eyes ringed in shadows, jaw set tighter than usual. In the kitchen, I made coffee. Habit insisted on making 2 mugs. I hesitated, then poured the second one anyway. Old muscle memory is stubborn. Footsteps approached slowly. She appeared in the doorway, wrapped in an old sweatshirt and leggings. No makeup, hair pulled back messily. "Morning," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Morning." Her eyes flicked to the second mug on the counter. I watched the realization wash over her face, a memory of all the mornings when this had been unspoken routine. "I can make my own," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I interrupted, sliding the mug a little closer to her. "You might as well have it." She picked it up carefully, like it might break, blue on the surface. Her fingers shook a little. We stood in the kitchen, separated by tile and unsaid things. The plant on the table drooped even further, one leaf completely shriveled. "I'll start looking for a place today," she said quietly. "I can stay at my sister's until I find something permanent." I nodded. The idea of her physically leaving still felt like ripping, but I didn't push it away. I'm not going to fight you on the apartment, she added quickly. You keep it. Or sell it, do whatever you need. I won't make anything harder than it already is. Logistics, practicalities, the language of endings. I pulled out a chair and sat. She hesitated, then sat opposite, like we were about to negotiate a contract. We should talk to a lawyer, I said. The word lawyer felt clinical, but there was a strange comfort in its precision, something that could hold the chaos in lines and signatures. She nodded, swallowing. Okay. Her eyes filled again, but she blinked fast, forcing the tears back. I know you hate me, she said softly. I thought about that. Did I? Hatred implies a certain kind of energy. What I felt was tired, hurt. Empty in places I hadn't known could be emptied. I don't know what I feel, I admitted. Some days I think I could hate you. Others, I remember you falling asleep on my shoulder on the train when we were 24, and all I feel is lost. She wrapped her hands tighter around the mug, as if borrowing its warmth. I don't deserve your kindness, she said. This isn't kindness, I replied gently. It's just honesty for once. We sat there, quietly sipping coffee in the half-light of the kitchen, like a faded photograph of ourselves. Eventually, she spoke again. I went back through our messages last night, she said. All the little things you sent, the stupid memes, the reminders to drink water. I can see now how you were still trying. Even when I had already left you in my head. Her voice shook. I'm not asking you to forgive me, truly. I know that might never happen. I don't want the last version of me in your memory to be this lying stranger. I looked at her. At the woman who had made vows and broken them. At the same woman who had held my hand in hospital waiting rooms, who had laughed so hard at a movie once that popcorn flew everywhere. You're not a stranger, I said slowly. That's the problem. If you were, this would be easier. She closed her eyes for a moment, a tear slipping out despite her effort. I talked to my therapist this morning, she said suddenly. The word therapist surprised me. I made an emergency appointment. I should have done it months ago, years maybe, but I was so busy believing my own story about being trapped, about deserving more. I need to figure out how I became someone capable of this. Because I don't want to be her anymore. For the first time, her guilt felt less like a performance and more like a reckoning with herself. That's between you and you, I said quietly. I'm not the one you need to prove that to. She nodded slowly. I know. The rain started again outside, soft at first, then steadier. It pattered against the glass, washing the city in a dull, reflective sheen. She wiped her face, took a breath. I've written something, she said hesitantly. I wasn't sure if I should show you. It's not an excuse, more like everything I never said out loud, about us, about how I felt, about how I lied to both of us. She slid a folded sheet of paper from her pocket and placed it on the table. The edges were crumpled, like she had been holding it all night. You don't have to read it now, she added quickly, or ever. I just didn't want to leave without leaving you with my actual words, not the edited ones I told myself were more comfortable. The paper sat between us, small, heavy. I looked at it, then at her. I'll read it, I said, not today. But someday. She exhaled slowly, a tiny flicker of relief crossing her face. I don't expect it to change anything, she said. It's more for closure, for both of us maybe. The word closure felt premature. But I understood the intention. We spent the rest of the morning moving carefully through the small apartment. She began to sort her things into piles, what to take, what to leave, what we had bought together and would have to decide on later. I watched her lift frames from shelves, photos of us. She removed one from its place, stared at it for a long time. It was from our 3rd year together, at a lake, her hair windblown, my arm around her shoulders. We looked effortlessly happy. Do you want it? She asked, holding it out. I took it, turned it over. The date was scribbled on the back in her handwriting. I thought about throwing it away, then about keeping it. I'll decide later, I said. I put it in a drawer. Some memories needed to be neither erased nor displayed, just stored, for when the sharpness dulled. By afternoon, the rain had eased. Light filtered through the clouds, softer now, not bright but clearer. Her suitcase sat by the door. Not everything, just enough to leave. She stood there, one hand on the handle, the other tracing the outline of the doorframe absent-mindedly. Her eyes moved around the room, cataloging what she was walking away from. I know I don't have the right to ask, she said quietly, but will you be okay? The question landed gently, not needy, not manipulative, just human. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I think I will be. Eventually. She nodded, looking down at the floor. Good, you deserve that. You deserve better than what I gave you. A small silence followed, not heavy, just inevitable. If someday you meet someone else, she added, voice even softer, I hope you let her see all the parts of you I took for granted. the quiet ones, the way you see details people miss. The way you never forget how someone takes their coffee. Her words stung, but there was no malice in them, just regret. I stepped a little closer, not enough to touch, just enough that I could see the small scar on her eyebrow from when we moved in and she'd bumped her head on a shelf. I loved you, I said. The past tense came out without effort. It surprised me how natural it felt. She closed her eyes and tears slipped down her cheeks freely now. I know, she whispered. It's the one thing I never doubted. Not for a second. We stood there, not hugging, not kissing, not dramatizing the moment. Two people at the edge of the life they had built, looking down at the gap between this step and the next. Goodbye, Ethan, she said. Goodbye, Myas. She opened the door, cool air drifted in from the hallway. She hesitated once, then stepped through. The suitcase wheels rolled softly on the carpet outside. The door closed with a quiet click. The apartment was still. Not empty, not yet, but different. I walked to the window. The sky was beginning to lighten, hints of blue pushing through the gray. Cars moved below, people crossing streets, carrying on with errands and routines. On the table behind me, her folded letter waited. I picked it up, weighing it in my hand. Then, instead of opening it, I placed it in a drawer alongside the photograph. There would be a time for deeper excavation, just not today. I made another cup of coffee, this time only one, sat at the table, facing the empty chair across from me. For the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like space, room to breathe. I thought about forgiveness. Not as a gift I could offer her now, but as something I might one day offer myself. Forgiveness for not seeing, for staying too long in suspicion, for loving someone who hurt me and still missing parts of her. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Outside, the morning brightened, not dramatically, just enough. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly. The air felt a fraction lighter. Letting go, I realized, wasn't a single act. It was a series of small choices made in quiet rooms, choosing not to reread old messages today, choosing to water a dying plant instead of throwing it away, choosing to believe that this version of myself, the one sitting alone in a half-lit kitchen, was not the end of my story. I stood, walked to the plant, and gently pressed my fingers into the dry soil. Then I filled a glass with water, poured it slowly, watching the earth darken, the roots drink. Outside, somewhere in the city, she was moving through her own mourning. Carrying her guilt, her bags, her decisions. We were no longer each other's home. I didn't feel relief yet, not peace. Those would come later, if at all. What I felt was something quieter. A small, fragile sense that, in this gray, rain-washed light, with the sound of distant traffic and the smell of fresh coffee, I could start to live inside my own skin again. Not as a husband, not as a betrayed man, just as Ethan. The day waited outside the window, ordinary and vast. And for the first time since everything collapsed, I let the possibility touch me. That one day, maybe on a morning not so different from this, the memory of this apartment, of her, of us, would settle into a place in my mind where it could exist without burning. I stood there, watching the light slowly widen across the floor, not knowing exactly how to begin again, but knowing in a quiet, tentative way that I finally could. Cross the floor, not knowing exactly how to begin again, but knowing in a quiet, tentative way that I finally could.